We last left off as Sam and Will were thrown into a dark, danky room. Let's begin. The door slams open as a tall man steps in and utters those words again. We are unity. We unite the wars. We end all war. We will conquer the earth. Sam butters out. What do you mean we are the unity? Why did you kidnap us? Will told him to shut the F up, which he does. Then they hear the screaming smothered voice of a man. Their blindfolds are lifted as their mailman sat there, beaten, battered, bloody. They asked this man what he was doing here, and he said, "Your will must be broken." They asked again, "What do you mean?" as he pulls out a long metal bat and slams the mailman in the face, knocking five teeth right out of his mouth. Then the next thing you hear is him say, "I have a family, I have a family," and then bang, a loud gunshot echoes through the base, and the mailman falls to the ground, dead. And instead of dragging his body out, they leave his body in there long enough for it to decompose. It begins to make the room stink. As they sat there and watched a man they hardly even knew, all they knew is he delivered the mail. And then the next person came in. It was the same tall, slender man, but he didn't have the mailman this time. He had a young woman. They'd never seen her in their lives, except they did. She was their doctor. She's the one that did the exams throughout their whole lives. She's the one that helped them. They told them life would be okay. She's the one that helped their Uncle Bob and Aunt Suzanne help them to become part of their family. Uncle Bob and Aunt Susan is what they referred to once they knew that they weren't their real parents. So they just kept calling them Uncle Bob and Aunt Susan. A tragic story indeed. Whereas they take a long, sharp dagger and pierce it through her head. She dies instantly. Then they bring in nothing. They bring in a TV. They bring in these devices that force their eyelids open, that fixate their eyes on the TV. And then they show the terrors of the world. People screaming in horror as the world burns. And their flag. Over and over. A simple U with Earth in the middle of the U. That's all their flag was. But it was shown in 5-second intervals every second. And then it went back to screaming in horror and terror as they watched these poor innocent souls that they did not know. The Holocaust, the Civil War. These people had recordings from as far back as the American Revolution. They watched as men were shot. British men, American men were shot and killed in real color. And it wasn't over then. The video was removed. The TV was taken out. And what set before them was a table full of daggers and all kinds of horrible devices. They take the dagger. One of the lab technicians takes the dagger and plunges it into Will's leg as he lets out a bellowing scream in the pain that can be heard through Sam's ears as he watches his brother continue to be tortured, taking bullets These men knew exactly where to shoot, exactly where to stab, where to inflict the most pain without killing one of them. They knew that, and they intended on taking full advantage of it. And they did. Will was beaten and battered and tortured to the point they brought in a strange yellow greenish liquid. They stuck a needle into Will's arm. He wasn't even cursing at them as he was doing when he was tortured, and they injected a serum. He began to seize in constant seizures, never ending. And they said simply, "End him of his misery. This one is ineffective." And they shot him in the head, or the neck. Blood splatters over Sam. He's terrified. He's just witnessed his brother's death. He does not know what to do, what he can do. And then the same man, says, "Break in, take him to the elemental room." And they put him on a cold slab metal table without even letting Sam say his goodbyes and wheel him out, never to be seen again. He then looks down at Sam and says, "We broke your brother's will, and that did nothing. We need to break yours, and maybe we'll have better advantages." They bring him food, uncuff him, and let him sit there as he slowly chews away its hard, stale bread. Not the good kind, the stuff that you would never eat. Because he has been traumatized. He watched his brother, his mailman, and hundreds of people die. All that remains of Sam is a broken individual. Then they pick him up after he's eaten, chain him back to the table, and say, "Now your life is about to change." They wheel in Will's table. It's covered in his blood, but no body. He struggles not to look at it, but then he hears a familiar scream. Not the scream, but the voice that's screamed. It's Suzanne, his Aunt Suzanne, Watson, is kicked in the back of her knees to fall to the ground, and a gun is pointed to her head. And they tell her, "Tell your adopted son, or whatever he is to you, that he's never seen you again." She says her last words. They have Uncle Bob as well. They'll bring him in too. But know one thing, no matter what they do to you, don't let it affect you. Promise me that. Sam says, "I promise." He says, "I will protect those to make sure these people never harm another person I love." And they shoot her in the back of the head. Then Uncle Bob is brought in, and instead of being shot in the back of the head, they bring out one of Sam's only reminding features. Something that was left with them, whoever their parents were, left with them. A dagger, with the words of a strange language that said, "Vabani Kadan Studa." They never knew what it meant. There was no one that could translate it. All they knew, that this was a dagger from their parents. He took the knife, and he slit Bob's throat. And he put a glass as the blood was pouring out. He filled this large glass up and dumped it over Sam's head. This truly was the final straw. They knew they'd done something right this time. They brought the same liquid in. First they injected a small dose, and they stabbed him in the arm. But something was off. The blade snapped like a twig. It didn't pierce his skin. It was the same blade that he just watched his Uncle Bob get killed with, but it snapped like a twig on his arm. They said it worked. They secondly bring in 3 gallons of this same liquid and inject it all into Sam. His blood becomes this liquid, and he can feel a power he's never felt before urge up in him. He feels stronger and faster and smarter all at once. He knows something's different. He knows something's happening. So he moves his wrist to break the solid metal chain right from it. The people in the lab know they've screwed themselves this time. He runs out. He breaks the chains around his leg as the tall, slender man continues to run and run and run. Because Sam promised at the beginning of this, when they get out of here, he promised he would kill him. And he fully intended to keep his promise. He runs and runs and locks himself in their door as the tall, slender man, then hears screams and a sound that breaks all the glass in the building. He then sees the solid titanium door that the room he was in tore off like a piece of paper. And Sam steps in and said, I intend to keep both the promises I made here. He grabs the tall, slender man by his neck and snaps it without even putting a bit of pressure on it. The tall, slender man falls down, lifeless and dead. And Sam begins to run and run and run. Before he knows it, he's back home, Portales, New Mexico, where he grew up. And all he knew, that from this point on, his life truly had changed. And he did not know what would happen. Copyright by Dylan Gordon Littlefield. This story is all made by Dylan Gordon Littlefield. Any attempt to steal this, you are a douchebag. And goodbye.